Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, you're not seeing things with the title screen, and I'm sure when the Schleg Daddy Jeff Shiegel at OTR Central gets his review up and going, if he can, your eyes won't be deceiving you either. Yes, I did see Slammiversary. I saw it, and from what I saw, the Schleg Daddy at OTRS Central tweet, as well as some others, I have to say that for the official last Slammiversary under the Impact/TNA regime, as well as at the same time being the first Slammiversary under the GFW Anthem Sports regime in the GFW Impact era, I have to say that what we got was a pretty decent show. I kind of got into it about 20 minutes late, so I ended up watching the first match during the replay. And I have to say that the opening fatal four-way for both the Impact and GFW tag team titles, so let's just face it, every time a championship match came on, the way it was presented is it said GFW Championship. That's what it said. It said GFW and what it was. It didn't say Impact, it didn't say TNA, it said GFW. And the word going around is that new championship belts will be presented possibly this Thursday on Impact to kind of solidify this merger between Impact and Global Force Wrestling, with the remnants of TNA being completely dissolved, and now it's just Global Force Wrestling going forward. But to start off, I have to say that what I saw for a Fatal 4-Way match, even though I caught the end of it on the live broadcast, and for the majority saw it during the replay, I have to say that what I saw was pretty good. It was a pretty good opener. It got people on their feet if they weren't already. It was a really decent opener. And I have to say that I was kind of surprised, I will say this, I was kind of surprised that Drago was allowed to be part of this, because in case you guys don't know, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I still know, Drago is still part of Lucha Underground. Yeah, it's part of AAA, thus he was allowed to be part of this, but still, that's part of Lucha, but he's still majorly affiliated with Lucha Underground. As a matter of fact, when he came out, people were chanting Lucha, Lucha, Lucha. In other words, acknowledging that they know where Drago's from and that he's from Lucha Underground. So I was kind of intrigued by that, but the team they got from Pro Wrestling Noah, I can't think of the names right now, Aishi and another guy, they were pretty good. I mean, I think Aishi, the one with the mask that he wears to the ring and then takes it off, I think he's the GHS, GHS, the Pro Wrestling Noah Junior Heavyweight Champion. So, but you know, the only other team in there besides the team Noah, the team Pro Wrestling Noah, and the team from AAA, which was Drago and Fantasma, or El Fantastico, whatever his name was, and the team from the Crash promotion, which were Laredo Kid and Garza Jr., probably the more familiarized team with the fans as of late, as well as with LAX. I have to say these 4 teams put up a good show. I mean, put on a good opener. I mean, all of them got the spots in, got the moves in, got what they needed in. What I did notice is how they were saving the AAA guys to come in later, kind of like maybe a few minutes, 5 minutes after the match officially got on the way. Because I think this is my opinion, but I think part of the deal with having Drago there is, yeah, he's going to perform. You're going to have, like I'm saying, part of having Drago there was, yes, he's going to perform, but you got to be careful because he's mostly used with Lucha Underground. He's mostly known as part of Lucha Underground. So anyway, though, besides that, like I said, they put on pretty good match here. I mean, pretty good opener. I mean, like I said, everybody got the spots in. I can't think of her name right now. The girl with LAX, she got involved several times and actually showed she could be very flexible, very agile. I mean, there was one moment where Gaza, it was like earlier in the match, she tripped up. I think it was she tripped. It was like earlier in the match, she tripped up Drago's tag team partner, and then when she tried to interfere again, Gaza caught her, and he tried to powerbomb her, or he kind of flipped her, or basically tossed her to where she flipped in the air and she landed on her feet on the arena floor. So that was impressive. So again, I can't think of her name right now. Maybe you guys can correct me in the comment section. But I definitely see her being a top contender, if not being the next GFW Women's Champion. Because apparently that's what we're going to go with. The GFW Women's Championship is going to be the main title now. But yeah, they had, like I said, a good opener, a good way to get people excited, get electrified, if you will. And in the end, it was Ortiz and Santana, I think that's the names of the champions for LAX. They ended up hitting their powerbomb blockbuster finisher on Laredo Kid, and they got the win. So I'm happy about that. Homicide, he did interfere as well. As a matter of fact, he interfered to the point that he got Hector Garza Jr. In the Gringo Killer, and hit it on the side of the apron. And here's the one thing that I'm kind of happy that GFW doesn't do. GFW, formerly Impact Wrestling, TNA, whatever. The one thing they didn't do with this, they didn't describe how hard that side of the ring is like WWE did. So I'm glad they went away from that. They don't do that. I'm glad about that. So again, good opening match, and this led us to our next matchup, which was the special attraction tag team match between Chris Adonis, Eli Drake against the Impact Grand Champion, or the GFW Grand Champion, Moose, and his partner, current NFL star D'Angelo Williams. And to say D'Angelo and Moose came alone is an understatement, because they had another former NFL player, I can't think of his name right now. This guy is huge. This big guy is huge. And then they had a guy that won can't think of his name right now off the bat either, but he recently won, I think, a NASCAR 600 race or something like that. So they had an okay match, and D'Angelo Williams, I will say this, I agree with what Jeff Siegel said, with the Schleg Daddy, and I think anybody else would agree with this as well, especially with the Schleg Daddy, what he had to say. D'Angelo Williams, if he wants to make a transition from pro football to pro wrestling after his NFL career is officially over, I think he's going to make a natural transition. I mean, here's a guy that is a current NFL player, that anytime you have a current athlete from another sport stepping into another sport like wrestling that you have to be careful with, here's a guy that basically put in the work in the short time he had. Actually put in the freaking work and proved that here. And he did pretty good. I mean, there were a few botches, don't get me wrong. I mean, there was one botch in the opening match too. I think it was El Fastico, or the Drago's tag team partner. I think he was I'm not sure if it was he or someone from Pro Wrestling Noah, but it was either him or one of the guys from Noah that slipped on the top turnbuckle of the top rope trying to come off it. And Eli Drake did the same thing here. He tried to a move and he kind of botched it, and to give Eli a little credit during the match, when he botched that move he wanted to do off the top rope, he kind of tried to adjust himself and tried to readjust himself and tried to rework it into something more. In other words, like what they said on commentary, he tried to make it look like that's what he meant to do. So, but it was a pretty good tag team match. I'll give it that. It wasn't a classic or anything, but for one of those special attraction matches where one of the participants is from another form of entertainment or another form of sport or another kind of sport, I have to say that people that paid for this pay-per-view like I did, people that were there live, either paid their way in or for free, I have to say they got their money's worth, because all I can say is, if GFW can continue doing this, where if they bring a celebrity in or a sports athlete in from another sport or another form of entertainment, if GFW keeps this up to where they say, hey, we want you to be part of this, but you need to put the work in, even in the short amount of time you're going to have to put it in, then I think they got a goal. Then I think they got something good here, because it looks like if they're going to bring anybody in, they want to make sure they put in the time and effort to learn what they're going to do. So overall, I thought this was pretty good. I really did. I thought it was a good attraction match. Like I said, Eli botched on his move. Robert Flores, who I will give the guy credit, he's mainly known for his work on the MLB Network. But Robert Flores, give him and Don West a lot of credit. They worked pretty good as an announce team tonight. But I think Robert messed up, made his own botch during this match, because a lot of people were kind of afraid that he might do this, and thankfully this was only a one-time deal. But Robert accidentally during the match called Chris Adonis Chris Masters. So thankfully I think that was the only time he botched any of his commentary up. But anyway, overall decent special attraction match. The other botch that came was when they laid Chris Adonis out on the table. They brought a table in, and D'Angelo did a splash off the top rope onto it and pinned Adonis afterwards. But the thing was, the table didn't break. So what they did to make up for it, after the match was over and Adonis and Eli are leaving, they grab Eli. Moose grabs Eli, puts him in the ring, and then power bombs him with a little assist from D'Angelo. Power bombs Eli through the table, basically saying, "Hey, someone's going through this table. People are going to get their money's worth." Bam, and that's what happened. the next match. The next match of the night was the other special attraction tag team match. It was JB, Jeremy Borash, and Joseph Park against Scott Steiner and Josh Matthews. And it wasn't pretty, but it was fun. I actually had some fun with this. I can see now maybe what Anthem is probably alluding to by saying we own the rights to the broken universe. I think what they're alluding to is we own the rights to how certain angles and presentations are going to be presented. In other words, I think what's going on is they're afraid. In other words, what I think what's going on is, and I'm not defending them here, I think what Anthem's trying to say is, look, we have no problem if they want to do the broken stuff, do the shattered stuff, whatever. That's fine. It's just that they can't film it in the way they used to over here when they were part of our team. So I think that might be the reason, because they kind of used a very similar style tonight in this match. Basically, we find out earlier in the night that it's no disqualification, so you knew something was going to happen. And what happened was Joseph and Jeremy ended up running out of the arena like saying, screw this, we're out of here. And they were getting chased down by Steiner and Josh Matthews driving a golf cart. I mean, it was entertaining. I mean, you even had a moment where Joseph and JB hid behind a wall, kind of like a cartoon kind of deal, and then blasted the golf cart with a fire extinguisher, and I think Steiner said something like, tastes like tapioca or something. I mean, one thing I think Jeff Siegel, Shug Daddy, I think you got a kick out of, was when they commandeered a limo, and oh, guess what? The driver was the same guy that drove the damn truck in Delete or Decay last year. So they commandeered that. They're running after JB and Joseph Park throughout Universal, and you hear Steiner calling them nothing but fat asses, just having fun. It looks like, I think Scott Steiner here, I think he had more fun here tonight with this than I think he's ever had in a while. So yeah, it was pretty good. And basically what happens is Steiner goes off in one direction after Joseph. Josh goes after JB, and when Josh goes after JB, they end up in a pool, kind of similar to the whole situation with Jeff Hardy and Crazy Steve last year in, I think, Delete or Decay. And what happened during that situation is all of a sudden you see this fin pop up, and the whole place, the whole impact zone just pops for this, because guess who it is? It's Shark Boy. And we're not talking just Shark Boy, we're talking the Stone Cold Shark Boy. And he ends up biting Josh Matthews on the oh, it was pretty good. But what really impressed me, and I don't think it was really JB that did this, but they made it look like it, the way it was filmed, they kind of made it look like it was JB. So JB tosses Josh Matthews into the pool, and JB goes in after him, doing a freaking backflip into the damn pool. So anyway, while that's going on, you have Joseph Park and Steiner fighting, and Steiner ends up pushing or clobbering Park through a wall and then walking off. And while everything else is happening, and then all of a sudden, you see, Park just like moving a little bit, just still a little out of it. But then all of a sudden you see this person walking up. And it's all in red, and again the place just pops, because guess who it is? It's Father James Mitchell. And what's he do? He hands Joseph Park a business mask. And he says, "Happy Slammiversary!" So, yeah. Basically, you can kind of get an idea what happened afterwards. JB ends up running back into the studio. into the impact zone. He gets followed by Steiner and Josh. They start beating on him. Josh wants to put the recliner on JB. Steiner lets him. And then you have Shark Boy try to come to the aid. That doesn't help. Then Steiner ends up putting JB in the recliner. And Josh is like, well, let me in. Steiner's like, no. And he's like, and Josh is like, okay, no problem. Step away. Step away and all that. But then all of a sudden, that's when you hear a familiar music. And it's Abyss's old music. But instead of Abyss coming out comes Father James Mitchell. And from behind comes Abyss, basically taking out both Steiner and Josh. Mitchell ends up giving him a bag of thumbtacks, which wouldn't be the first time we see some thumbtacks this night. And he ends up basically laying out Josh Matthews with the black hole slamming. First of all, he tried to use the choke slam. That didn't work. Josh blocked that. And then when Josh tried to counter, he ends up getting hit with a black hole slam right into the thumbtacks. And then JB, I think, comes off the top rope, and he ends up hitting a splash on... I think he comes off the top rope. I have to look in. But JB ends up splashing Josh Matthews in the while he's on the tacks, and JB ends up getting some in his hand. And JB and Joseph Park / Abyss end up winning the match. So it was fun. It was a fun and entertaining match. And if they can continue doing this, because this is the one thing. This is the one thing I will say about this is if they can keep doing angles like this with this kind of production, where they give you something here in the arena and then they show you what's going on the outside, kind of interweave it. I think they'll be all right. So I'm happy about that. So I was happy about the match. It was pretty good. Then we end up going into our next match, which is the first ever mixed tag team Full Metal Mayhem match. You have the Natural Born Killers in Davey Richards and Angelina Love against Eddie Edwards and his wife Alicia. I can't pronounce her name. It's Aisha, I think. It's with an A. It's Aisha. Aisha, yeah. So you have them in this next match, and just as Angelina and Davey coming down the ramp, Eddie and his wife end up attacking them from behind, and that's how the match gets started. And I have to say that I thought it was alright. You know, it wasn't a pretty match. You know, but I think the reason they did this as well by involving the women in this was to show that, yeah, was to show WWE or anybody else, yeah, you can put women in Hell in the Cells, and you can put them in Money in the Banks and Last Woman Standings and Falls Count Anywhere. We're going to put them in freaking TLC. We're going to do something you guys haven't done. We're going to put them in a TLC-like match. The only difference is it's pinfall submission only. So this was okay. I mean, Angelina and Aisha, you know, they did pretty well. I mean, you could definitely tell the experience difference between Aisha and Angelina, but they did pretty well here. It was actually pretty good. I mean, there were moments where they used the tape, chairs and stuff were being... I mean, Angelina introduced a ladder right into the match almost from the start after they kind of tried to regroup themselves from being attacked from behind. So, overall, it was pretty good. I wouldn't say pretty good, I would say it was decent. It was a decent mixed Full Metal Mayhem match. And, you know, they did what they could here, and it was fun. It was entertaining. There was a moment where Angelina went to the outside and grabbed a cup, and the cup was full of thumbtacks. And, you know, at first you think, well, what is this? What is this? Is it some kind of like maybe juice, some kind of liquor, some kind of, you know, something vile or something? You know, you didn't know what it was. and then she pours it a little bit out. It's thumbtacks, but instead of spreading them on the mat, like what happened in the previous match, they decided to get a little bit more creative and do something we haven't seen, I think, in a while in this company. And that's have her pour. She started pouring the thumbtacks into Eddie Edwards' mouth. And, you know, that was one moment there. You know, I'm surprised he wasn't bleeding or anything, but, you know, you had spots here with chairs, you had spots with kendo sticks, you had a spot with, you had a spot at the end with the ladder. I mean, you know, they set up the ladder, and Angelina's, and it looked like there was this moment. I don't know what it was, but it's like Angelina was going up after Eddie, because Eddie was going to was going up after Eddie or something on one side of the ladder. Davey was on this side, and what happened is Eddie's wife gets up from behind her and power bombs her right through a table that's set up in one of the corners of the ring. And this is enough. And she goes out. She's out. Eddie's kind of concerned. Davey gets the advantage a little bit, but Eddie's able to fight off a possible superplex. And Eddie ends up hitting a sunset flip powerbomb off the top of the ladder through the table, and ends up getting the win for him and his wife. So hopefully this feud is over and we can move on, but who knows. So after that, we end up transitioning into the first of our 3 championship matches. And this is the one thing I give them credit for. At least they transitioned into, at least they were able to transition. Oh no, we didn't get that yet. We didn't get that yet. What we got instead, I think, I don't know if it was after Full Metal Mayhem or before, but I think it might have been around, well, basically before that, we also had the strap match between EC3 and James Storm. And this was a pretty fun match. It was brutal with as far as leather strap matches go, but it was a pretty fun match, pretty entertaining match. I mean, you know, you basically had James getting the upper hand throughout it. You had EC3 getting the upper hand and everything, and then you know, you had basically both of them kind of trading upper hands either way with the leather strap. Like EC3 was getting it, James Storm was getting it. It was going back and forth. There was a moment where, you know, EC3 was whipping James with the leather strap, and James just absorbed it. He just stood up, almost like, "Is that all you got?" kind of deal. And James even hit the 1%er on EC3. That wasn't enough to put EC3 away. And then when EC3 tried to get the upper hand, and again in the match, he ended up pulling out some handcuffs from behind the ring, from under the ring, and he took the key, and it looked like, I thought at first, it looked like at first that he had swallowed the key, because he pulls out the thing with the key, he pulls out the necktie with the key, and he pulls the key off with his teeth, and I'm thinking, did he just swallow it so that when he hooks the cuffs on James, James can escape? Apparently not, or at least they had an extra set just in case. But what happened was, unless, like I said, the referees had an extra set of keys, which it looked like they did anyway. But what happened is EC3, this is another moment in the match, tried to handcuff James in the middle of one of the corners, but instead James was able to reverse it and handcuff EC3. And he ended up giving EC3 not 31, but 32 strap lashings across. And what this did, though, however, was open the door for EC3 to get himself not only uncuffed by the referee, but kind of allow himself to kind of slip through allow his hand to slip through the strap. And this was enough of an opening for him to where when James came out, he ends up pulling James right into one of the hard ring posts, one of those hard ring posts, not like with WWE, the metal ones, but the hard, like, hardboard ring post that they have there. And what happened was, we don't know if this was just worked or something, but what happened during the match was it knocked James loopy. It just basically knocked him for a loop, because EC3 brought him in. He hit the 1%er, or tried to. Basically what happened in the end is he tried to hit the 1%er. He did that, but James kicked out. James ended up hitting him with the last call, the super kick. And then when he tried to go for a second time, and because he got in position, he ended up collapsing. Like something was off. And I think what happened is he ended up getting knocked, like I said, for a loop, worked or otherwise. He ended up getting knocked for a loop. And what EC3 did afterwards, instead of just covering him to end it, to play up his heel character, he ends up hitting another 1%er on James, and thus EC3 wins the strap match. So it was a hard hitting. It was hard hitting as far as strap matches that I've seen go, but it was fun and entertaining. I think it was one of the better matches, storytelling wise, of the night. So kudos to that. Then you had Low Ki and Sanjay Dutt for the 2 out of 3 falls for the X Division Championship. And I will say this, if there's anything that this company, rebranded or not, did right with this card, is if you're going to celebrate 15 years, and I know 15 years isn't a milestone for many. You usually want to wait for 25 or 20 or whatever. But many companies look at 15 as being just as big. It's like you got to a point no one thought you would get to. But anyway, for them to bring back, for them as far as this card goes, to put any kind of match together that really celebrates the history of this company, as well as one of its established championships that's been around from day one, almost, in the X Division title, I don't think you could have done any better than Sanjay and Low Ki. And I'm not saying this because I met Sanjay in person one time. I'm saying this because of the fact that these guys were there from the beginning. And to say they put on a match that was decent, entertaining, and it wasn't, I'll say this, it wasn't a catch-all X Division classic. I will say this, but it definitely, I'd say this, in their own way, they paid, Low Ki and Sanjay paid tribute to how far the X Division's come with their match, because this was entertaining. This was a highly competitive match. They really went back and forth here. I mean the various creative ways that Low Ki was able to hit the Warrior's way on Sanjay several times was amazing. And overall, it was a very entertaining match. I mean, the first fall went to, of course, to Low Ki, who was able to counter, I think, Sanjay out of the corner, hit him with, it looked like a drop kick, and then the Warrior's way to get the pinfall. And then Sanjay ended up blowing up a possible submission that Low Ki had on him to get the pinfall in his favor later on. And then the third fall was kind of really back and forth, because you didn't know if they were going to give it back to Low Ki or if they were going to keep it on Sanjay. And in the end, they were able to capitalize on the fact that they were, in the end, basically Sanjay was able to capitalize on a mistake by Low Ki, where Sanjay was able to hit his moonsault foot stomp on Low Ki to get the win. And again, it was good. It was back and forth. It was good storytelling too, because it made you believe certain moments in the match that Low Ki could have injured his ankle, stuff like that. So, or could have broke his foot or something like that. But good match, got some decent storytelling, and I think they made the right decision by keeping the belt on Sanjay, because now you kind of bring everything full circle, because he's one of your founding X Division fathers or members that now has the belt. So I like that. And that was the first of 3 championship matches. And what I liked about the structure of this card is they kept the championship matches for last. In other words, these are the more important that these are the headliners of the show. And it definitely showed in the matches. We had Rosemary against Sienna in a unification match for both the Knockouts and GFW Women's Championships. And these women, they brought it. You know, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a all-time women's classic match, but it was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining. The Schleg Daddy, I know, basically said that it was it felt like it was a Vince Russo kind of a typical. Basically, he felt like it was that even though the name changed, it was still sort of the same kind of TNA overbook styling for the match, because just the way that you had KM and Lauren Van Ness come out a little early in the match, and how you had Van Ness, and then how they left, because it wasn't the referee that ejected them to the back. No, it was actually Sienna. Because what happened is Lauren, one thing in case you don't know, Lauren Van Ness is just playing this psyched out, whacked out, left at the altar bride. That's just completely gone cuckoo, cuckoo. So she ends up botching something to where Sienna ends up going through the middle, the bottom rope. Sienna's not happy, so she ends up telling KM, take her to the back, get out of here, I can handle this. So again, the match was back and forth. I mean, both women did what they had to do. I like how they kind of, built up the silencer finisher for Sienna, and that basically when Rosemary kicked out of it, nobody's ever kicked out of it. So I like how they built that up, and the expression on Sienna's face is like, what the hell just happened? So that was good. I like how, I will say that, even though you could say it was over, even though Jeff, if you're watching, you could say it was overbooked, I will say that it was kind of overbooked in old-fashioned TNA style. I will say that what I liked about it was, of course, how they built up the fact that no one's kicked out of the silencer shoulder block finisher, and Rosemary was the first. I like how they kind of in a sense, kind of add that prestige or that mystique to Rosemary, even in defeat, because yes, what happened in the end is Rosemary ended up getting locked in an MMA submission. I don't know if it was what's the name of that submission? It's sort of like a sleeper, a reverse dragon sleeper or something like that. It's kind of like a coquilla. It's like a lock or something like that. So basically, she ends up putting Rosemary in the submission. Rosemary ends up tapping out, or at least giving it up for now. And Sienna ends up winning the unification match. She is now the GFW Women's Knockout Champion, or basically the GFW Women's Champion. Undisputed, that is. And honestly, I think it was a smart move, because if you're going to play storyline-wise into the ego of someone like Sienna saying, hey, I'm the more dominant female out there, no one can beat me, then you're doing your job. Because I think what they're going to do here is they're going to use this as a springboard, they're going to use this here at Slammiversary as a springboard for Bound for Glory. And what I mean by springboard is they're going to use it to platform themselves into Allie versus Sienna at Bound for Glory. And I think that's where Allie is going to end up getting the Women's Championship. I'm just saying, because why else would you give it to Sienna than to not set up to an Allie victory at Bound for Glory? I'm just saying. Sienna ended up getting the win. But what was funny about this is the mystique factor they gave to Rosemary, because when she tried to go for the mist on Sienna had it scouted to the point that she covered Rosemary's mouth and tried to, cause Rosemary to choke on the mist, which it looked like it did. But what was happening was Sienna's hand was starting to burn. I was like, holy crap, what the heck is this stuff made of? And so when she got distracted, when Sienna got distracted by that, Rosemary tried to put her in the Red Wedding again. Rosemary tried to put her in her finisher again, her Red Wedding, or her version of the F5. And Sienna used the advantage. Her hand was still burning, but she was able to use that kind of to an advantage to put it in Rosemary's eyes and then lock her in that submission to get the win. So even though Rosemary lost, I look at it from a storyline and character situation, a story arc, storyline kind of character situation, that it adds mystique to Rosemary, that even though she lost, and it builds from a storyline perspective Sienna's character up to where her downfall is going to be great, is going to be something everybody's going to look forward to at Bound for Glory, or maybe even sooner depending on what they do. I have to say that storyline-wise, it brings up a good mystique for Rosemary, because it's like, you get in the ring with her, whether or not she beats you for a championship or not, you don't know what you're going to get with her. So we'll just have to wait and see. But again, like I said, I think they made the right decision. I know Sienna's not the most popular character, a popular female wrestler in GFW or any place she goes to. But I think they made the right move here, because from a storyline perspective, it builds up Allie. It builds towards, it basically becomes a springboard platform to the eventual Allie match at Bound for Glory. I think that's what it does, and I'm kind of glad that they're doing it that way. Now, the next match, of course, was the main event. And, of course, unfortunately, Jeff, I know you're watching, and when you do your review, I know a lot of people are going to expect you to do a certain position because of this, but before the main event happened, out came Jeremy Borash, and you're thinking, okay, it's probably custom that he'll do the introductions for the match, for the main event. But before he does that, he brings out somebody that I'm sure, just like Daddy, you were hoping were not going to be there. And it was, of course, Jeff Jarrett. Now, of course, what was funny is they kind of botched a little bit on the music, because somebody else's music started and then they kind of stopped it. But they finally brought him out, and the crowd there was very receptive. They said thank you to Jeff. They said thank you to Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff, he kept it short and sweet. It wasn't a long promo. I'd say maybe 3 minutes at most, 3-4 minutes at most. But he kept it short and sweet. And then off to the races we went with our main event. And, I like how they did presentations with this. I like how they were, I like how they presented Lashley here as kind of showing, hey, he's not just part of GFW, he's also part of the MMA world, because he's part of America's Top Team, and here comes his comrades. And it was everybody, including King Mo. And then, contrast to that, here comes Alberto El Patron with his dad and his brother. And it was a big contrast, because here you have Lashley coming out with all these guys, and here you have El Patron just coming out with his father and brother. Big contrast there. Now, what I did like about this, though, and it even goes with the women's match that came before, what I liked about it was you had two, basically, founders, as far as world championships go, in this company, whether you like them or you don't, being the ones to hold up both championships to the crowd, presenting them to the crowd, showing the importance of that, importance of the match, and importance of this unification. You had Gail Kim do it with the women's match, and whether you like him or you don't, you had Jeff Jarrett do it for this match. Overall, the match, I thought was good. You can. I thought was good overall. I thought it was very well. I thought it was. I think in a sense, as far as former WWE guys that come into Impact, come into GFW, TNA, whatever you want to call it, and try to reinsert themselves, kind of try to, realign themselves, try to find a footing again. To say that this was one of the better matches between two former WWE guys on another promotion's pay-per-view, and especially in the main event, I think it would be an understatement, because it wasn't the best match of all time for GFW, TNA, whatever you want to call them. But I have to say it was one of the hardest hitting ones I've seen, one of the more physical, hard hitting ones that there were. I mean, it went back and forth. It went back and forth, and you had Lashley, getting dominant throughout. Through most of the match, Lashley showed his dominance and basically would show off like he would do all the time, like, hey, I'm the best thing going. This guy's nothing right now. But in the end, it would. But throughout the match, while he would do that, it would cost him, because throughout the match, Alberto would basically lock him into like an armbar over the ropes. He would do what he can, like with a foot stomp and all that, from the top turnbuckle, whatever. And what happened in the end is Lashley was getting too confident, and he ended up going after Alberto's father, who and I guess this was enough distraction to where Alberto was able to take advantage, and he was able to hit the double foot stomp onto Lashley to get the pinfall. Now, what's interesting about this is it looked like Lashley's shoulder was up at the 3, so if we're going to get any controversy coming out from this again this Thursday on GFW Impact, I wouldn't be surprised. But basically this hard-hitting main event goes to Alberto El Patron. He ends up becoming champion, the unified champion, so he's the GFW World Heavyweight Champion. And overall, I have to say that for a relaunching point, as far as a company goes, as far as relaunching and trying to put that past, and basically trying to distance themselves from the TNA past, and like I say, rebrand themselves as, kind of rebrand themselves, kind of be reborn, if you will. I have to say, with Slammiversary tonight, I think they did a decent job. I'm not going to say it was an all-time great pay-per-view, but I have to say that this was a decent starting off point for the rebranding, for the rebirth of this company. And again, not a lot of people will agree with it, but I have to say, like I said, if they were looking for a proper way to get a decent restart, reboot for this brand with Slammiversary, going from being TNA, Impact, to now GFW, Global Force Wrestling, I have to say that this was a good starting point for them, and hopefully they can keep the momentum up. Hopefully they can. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people right now that are not too happy with the WWE's product, that want another alternative. I mean, not a lot of people get Ring of Honor on television right now, and they want something that they can get. Not a lot of people can get Lucha Underground. They want something they can get. Not a lot of people can get the New Japan broadcast through Access TV. They want something else they can get. And hopefully GFW, the now former TNA, GFW, Global Force Wrestling, can give that to them. And even though it wasn't a good pay-per-view, I have to say it was a decent start as far as the relaunch, the rebooting, the rebirth for this company. So we'll just have to see where they go from here. like I said, I understand they're going to present new championship belts to the winners. And what's interesting about this coming out of the show was you had several times throughout. Well, not throughout the show, but what was interesting about it is there was reports going around that some of tonight was being spoiled by TV Guide. Ringside News and other sources were saying that TV Guide or things like it were spoiling the outcome. They were spoiling who was going to win in the certain championship matches, but they were always adding something else. Like Sanjay got his title stolen by somebody. That didn't happen. Alberto probably being part of LAX. That didn't happen. Even though Conan suggested that they do have a new member coming, and that could put that suspicion in. But I think what happened tonight is Anthem probably got word about the leaks by TV Guide and said, you know what, let's not do anything right now tonight. Let's instead wait maybe till Thursday and see what happens. So that's probably why you didn't see anybody stealing the X Division title from Sanjay. That's why you didn't see Alberto probably donning an LAX t-shirt and turning on everybody that came down to celebrate with him. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Now, what was interesting about this, and WrestleZone reported this, and I'm sure Ringside News has got this too, is Paige was at ringside. She was sitting at ringside, but guess what? She wasn't shown on camera. You know why she wasn't shown on camera? Because even though you might have seen her, you didn't see her. Because she was wearing a Don Carraris mask. She was wearing a Don Carraris mask to cover her face. So that way you didn't see it was her. So even if you saw somebody sitting in the crowd with the same mask that Alberto's father had on their face or on their head, that was Paige. The reason she did that smart move, hopefully, was that she wouldn't be seen. So hopefully that doesn't come back to bite her. But yeah, she was there at ringside, but she did possibly the smart thing by covering her face so nobody sees that it's her. So overall, I have to say they did a decent job here. And like I said, but overall I have to say they did a decent job here. The commentary by Robert Flores and Don Rest was very well done, except for that one botch during the match with Moose, D'Angelo, Adonis, and Eli Drake, where Robert ended up calling Adonis Masters. I liked, and one thing, just like Daddy did say, that he did like, that he felt G1 didn't do with the USA special, was they gave us background, is that GFW, TNA, whatever you want to call them, gave us background stories on the competitors, got to let us know who they were, and go from there. So that was pretty good. And the reason I say this was a good relaunching point, this was a decent relaunch, reboot for this company, and a good, decent relaunch, restart for this company, was the way they started the show. They started it with the narrator that's done a lot of the narration on camera for the very first time. We see his face for the very first time. And he's talking about the history of this company. And what he's basically talking about is the history that was TNA. And now how you're transitioning from TNA to now being GFW. How this show was going to be for the future. It was going to be the launching point for the new legends of tomorrow, the new stars of tomorrow, stuff like that. So overall, again though, decent show. And if they were looking for a decent relaunch, rebirth, restarting point for the company as Global Force Wrestling, I think Anthem did a decent job here. Did they hit a home run? I'd say they hit an in-the-park home run, not a grand slam. So we'll just have to see what happens come Thursday. And really, that's all I'm going to say. Sorry this took so long to review. But let me know what you guys think down below. Jeff, the Strike Daddy, I hope to see you do a review soon. If not, let me know what you think. Take your time in watching this, guys. And that's all I'm going to say. So God bless until next time. And I'm out.